Story 1. My ex-wife was overpaying the cable bill for years by a lot because it's smart to pay more than you owe on bills if they're loans, not subscriptions. The cable company wound up owing us so much that they had to get clearance from accounting to pay us back. It was over $1,000. Story 2. The girl I was dating in high school told me she thought that girls and women who get raped actually wanted it. I asked her to elaborate, and she explained that she thought they could just fight off any man who assaulted them. She was about 5 feet tall and 100 pounds and would not budge on the notion that no man on earth could possibly overpower her. Story 3. He fell for a pig butchering scam and basically handed over $7,000 and my identity to the scammers. Yes, I'm still dealing with the fallout from that for years later. Story 4. I'm sharing this on behalf of my father, who must have thought this when he saw my mother do this. So our family was playing Pictionary with another family, and it was my mother's turn to draw. The category was difficult, so we all expected a challenge. My mother starts drawing and ends up with a very poor attempt at a Chinese person's face and head. None of us are able to get even close to it, and we are perplexed as to what she is trying to draw. Time runs out, and she exclaims, "It's Mao." I'm like, "What? Mao Zedong?" "Yes, the Chinese leader," she says. I say, "There is no way a Pictionary card would expect players to draw a portrait of Chairman Mao freestyle. Show me the card." Mom hands me the card, and I look at the word under difficult, and I collapse on the floor in hysterical laughter. The card read mow, as in mowing the lawn. My mother will never live that down. Story 5. Not really in a relationship, but on a third date, the girl I was seeing noticed I had gamer calluses and expressed deep concern because the only way she could think of someone getting calluses on their hands like that was from hitting people. I considered the situation, thought about my blue-collar family that has calloused hands in many different ways, and decided it was better not to go on another date rather than unravel whatever was going on there. Story 6. She got caught bringing drugs over the border. Then she played the victim about it. They were so mean. They let her off with a petty misdemeanor charge, no jail time, and a $150 fine. And she still acted like it was something that was being done to her. If only I could see the signs. Story 7. When he poured a quarter of a bottle of dish soap onto a sponge to wash one pan. When he sprayed an entire bottle of air freshener in the bathroom of my one-bedroom apartment after going number 2. We had to open all the windows and sit on the balcony until it was easier to breathe. When he admitted he didn't have his driver's license after nearly running us into the guardrail going down a mountain pass. When he started wearing tactical gear in public and cleaned a loaded gun that discharged into a wall. When I broke up with him and he stalked me for 2 weeks. Bonus, when he called me 2 years later asking for a reference to a police academy. I said no. Story 8. He came around the house with a burn mark on his neck. He had tried to iron a crease out of his t-shirt while he was wearing it. 3 months later, he did the exact same thing. Story 9. Everything she doesn't understand is just stupid. Home loans and mortgage rates? What's the point in a down payment if you pay it off over 30 years? What even is escrow? It's just stupid. Why can't they just get us a house? Flight times. Why are we flying at 12:45? Wouldn't it make more sense to go at 10? It's stupid. Documentaries of any kind. What? No, that's stupid. No way that's real. Not to mention she could not or refuse to figure out what bills are, how much they are, and when they were due. She messed up our savings multiple times because she couldn't figure out how to write things down on a calendar, and I'd have to pay it all back with late fees. Don't dare ask to set up a direct deposit. That's stupid. What if I need the money for something else that day? She was so exhausting. Not going to lie, the day I found out she cheated on me was the best day of my life at that point. I was gone. Story 10. I didn't consider her a fool for it, but my last girlfriend before meeting my wife randomly mentioned in conversation that she didn't believe in dinosaurs. It went something like, "Me, it's crazy that people think that it's like not believing in dinosaurs." Her, "Well, dinosaurs didn't exist." Me, "What should we do for dinner?" I was flabbergasted for a week and couldn't wrap my head around it. When she finally asked, "You've been different, what's wrong?" I basically exploded with, "Seriously? Dinosaurs are fakes. and we parted ways. On the first date with my now wife, I asked, "Do you believe in dinosaurs?" And she responded with something like, "Are you an idiot? It's not a belief. They did exist. It's science." I breathed a sigh of relief. Story 11. When he asked me if he could use dishwashing soap in the dishwasher, I said no and told him what would happen. Guess who came home to a kitchen bubble bath? I went out to lunch with my cousin and aunt. She had moved to England from Canada a few years back. He asked her if it was difficult learning the language. When he told his friends I was his trophy wife, I didn't want to embarrass him, so I just laughed. Later in the car, he told me I embarrassed him, and I told him he embarrassed himself. He asked me why, and I had to define what a trophy wife was and why I am not. I am much more educated and make more money than him. I'm older than him. I spend very little time on my outward appearance, and he definitely doesn't pay for any of it. We are divorced. Story 12. My ex met my dad for the first time and proudly said he was working for a well-known pyramid scheme. My ex was convinced it wasn't a pyramid scheme. I will always remember my dad's look of disappointment in me. I broke up with him that night. Story 13. Dated this guy in high school. He called me after our summer reading lists were published and asked me what a paperback book was. It took me a second to explain because I was so shocked by the question, and then he didn't get it after my first two explanations. We broke up a few months later, and afterwards, he sent me emails from Jesus telling me we were supposed to get back together. But they came from his email account that he had used to send me emails while we were dating. Story 14. Not my relationship, but a relative. She poured the melted wax from her warmer into the disposal side of the sink. Good thing her husband was capable of replacing the drain and disposal. We still bring that up. Story 15. I was in my 30s when I saw you fixing a toilet and realized they don't use electricity to flush. That's hilarious. That's like thinking bath taps use electricity. Wait, what? She is not really an idiot. She has a doctor of philosophy. But talking about anything plumbing related is white noise to her. And she thinks there are people in rubber boots who can deal with that sort of thing, so she doesn't need to ever learn it. Story 16. I dated a girl who dropped a few gems. One was, "Why do we say words instead of just spelling them?" I stared blankly, asked her to repeat herself, hoping I didn't hear correctly. I did. I replied, "Becausitwoul." Around this point, she got a really confused look on her face and said, "What?" And I said, "That's why." Another time, a friend of mine mentioned his dog had a litter of puppies. The girl I was seeing said, "What if human moms could have more than one baby?" You mean like siblings? Don't you have an older brother? No, I mean like at the same time. You've never heard of twins? Then she got angry and didn't talk for a while. The relationship didn't last long. Story 17. I was definitely not in a relationship with this girl, just seeing each other. But she did tell me that she didn't believe in dolphins. Her reasoning? She has never seen one in person. Story 18. My normally quite intelligent spouse licked a vanilla frosting scented candle to see if it tasted as good as it smelled. It did not taste good at all. Story 19. When he blocked the toilet by putting thick paper towels down there and, after trying to unblock it for a total of 2 minutes, he had a tantrum, yelled at me, and stormed out to the pub for an hour. While he was gone, I managed to unblock it in less than 30 seconds. When he got back, he had another tantrum and went back to the pub for what I believe was emasculating him. Good times. Story 20. A boy I dated in college visited my house for the first time. I grew up on a dairy farm. He turned into the laneway, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Wow, your dad seriously needs to cut the grass." It was a huge field of hay. My parents' laneway is about a quarter-mile long with fields on both sides. It's quite obvious that it was not a patch of grass. Story 21. When I told her how a vaccine was made, she said I didn't know what I was talking about and insulted my education. When I searched for it online and showed her proof, she refused to believe it and told me you can't believe everything you read on the internet. Story 22. She fell for an extremely obvious money scam on Instagram, got locked out of her bank account, and had to pay her bank back $5,000 because of her own stupidity. This is a young woman in her late 20s, not an 80-year-old who has never used the internet. Truly baffling. Story 23. He insisted my water was bad because his skin was dry, not because he literally never drank water. It was winter, he used cheap bar soap and never moisturized. But my water was bad, and he refused to accept any other reasoning. Story 24. When he got his company truck stuck in a riverbed towing a trailer full of heavy, wet sand he had stolen from the riverbed, I had asked him to go to the contractor's yard to get some bedding sand for $20 at most, but he was too cheap to pay that. Then I had to pull him out, and it damaged my transmission. He did nothing to check if my vehicle was all right. A few weeks later, the transmission blew on a hill with no cell phone coverage on the way to the airport, trying to catch a flight. I missed the flight, had to hitch a ride, then had to get my vehicle towed and fixed for $3,000. This is just one example of many idiotic decisions he made over the years. Story 25. An ex-boyfriend told me it wasn't necessary to pull back the foreskin when cleaning his penis, and that recurring infections are normal when you aren't circumcised. Story 26. I was once married and now happily divorced to a man who looked me in the eye and said, "With global warming, I wonder if I could invent something to keep buildings cool?" I was so shocked I stared at him for a minute before I said, "You mean air conditioning?" Story 27. I was dating a girl, an engineer of all things. We got along pretty well, but she was a far-right enthusiast and I'm more of a left-leaning person. Fair enough. Then one day we were talking about stuff that we diverged on a lot, like guns and abortion. When I talked about global warming, she said, "Well, you know, global warming is fiction created by the United States to control the poorer nations and prevent them from growing, right?" And then I was like, "Sure. Now next you'll tell me the earth is flat." And she did just that. Story 28. I walked in on a debate between my girlfriend at the time and my brother. She was arguing that the human brain is located outside of the skull. Like on top of it, I guess. Oof. Story 29. He gleefully tried to enter an aloe vera product-centered pyramid scheme a friend of his was trying to include him in. He didn't even know what aloe vera was. So he was legitimately convinced the aloe vera scientists from this company just discovered a true cure-all. In the end, I managed to dissuade him, but it took a lot of work, and it completely ruined my trust in his ability to make reasonable financial decisions or perceive undesirable facts and admit he's wrong. We broke up not long after. Story 30. He insisted on opting out of the X-ray scanners at airports because he didn't want them having his image. The man was a professional internet personality. His face and information aren't hard to find. Story 31. We were no longer married, but when he said he didn't know what the parenting agreement said because he hadn't read it, I was surprised. He went to law school, yet still signed a binding document about his children without reading it. Story 32. He decided to try and make homemade steroids and subsequently melted the kitchen countertop in our rented apartment, which cost $600 to replace as we moved out during our divorce. He won supplements in an online contest and decided to make his own concentrate from them. Got diarrhea so bad we nearly went to the hospital from dehydration. After getting his master's degree in a niche field with no actual experience, he replied to a job offer that was below his worth with a, "Don't you realize I have a master's degree from a university? Forget you and your insulting offer." Turns out it's a small world. The person is a top recruiter and he was blackballed everywhere. I think he sells security systems, never worked in his field of study. Was a police officer for the academy and was fired less than 60 days later for, in part, crashing the police car 3 times and being erratic and all sorts of things. Faked his way out of the military by huffing grass clippings to trigger an asthma attack. Then tried to file for disability too. Posts super bizarre stuff on social media and insults people all over while working as a police officer and is livid when called out about it. Made $90,000 throughout a 10-year marriage. Total. Tried for alimony too. Just like, why? Story 33. When he told me our son with a lung condition wasn't really that sick, that he just had a cold, I was frustrated. No, I can't bring him to the emergency room. I'm being dramatic. 24 hours later, I called an ambulance. Intensive care unit for 9 days. He still tries to tell me it was all in my head, that he really wasn't all that sick. This isn't the first time he's done this. and my son ended up in the intensive care unit. There have been thousands of other things, but this is one I will never forgive. Hoping he will be my ex this year. Story 34. After 2 years together, she decided she was bisexual and wanted to explore her sexuality. I was uncomfortable with having an open relationship, but I really liked her and wanted it to work. We agreed that we could sleep with other people, but she became extremely volatile when she realized that if I was going to sleep with someone else, it would be a woman and not a man. She figured that since she would be having sex with another woman, it made sense for me to have sex with another man. I'm not bisexual. I have no attraction to men. She eventually decided against the whole open relationship thing. This relationship did not last. Story 35. When she left for work in her socks, she was gone for 15 to 30 minutes, then finally came back and said, "Oops, I forgot my shoes." How do you walk through the house, down the steps, and through the driveway all on concrete, get into your car, drive for at least 15 minutes all in socks, before realizing you're not wearing any shoes?